Welcome, Omid, to the Green Gauge. It's a pleasure to have you, and I just hope you can give a little more context on your role in the industry. And I'd like to start usually with the macro. So if you can
Mm,
present a little bit your role and give a little bit more context to the audience about that.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this one. Okay, my background's initially in quant finance, so I've kind of, let's say, I got trained as a mathematician to have to think about how different systems fit together and the impact that they have on each other and so on. So that's the kind of basis of for a lot of stuff that I do at the moment. Um, I've then spent quite a lot of time trying to design and implement and scale different workflows and systems in the AI world. And the last 5 years or so, starting Gitfolio, um, it was really actually just starting with doing Gitfolio to do a little bit better with AI. And I think that's kind of all we started with. At the moment, the kind of that how that shapes up is really looking at what is happening in the world, which to me, there's a couple of them that affect what we do pretty directly. One of them is, of course, this increasing scrutiny on AI, rightly so. The impact it's having and where it's originated, and how that's kind of the linkage between those two things, right? So this is the people that contributed the data are not the people that are benefiting from it. The people that kind of, uh, put a lot of their themselves into it are not really the people that are being positively incentivized. And I think that's just the beginning. I think everyone kind of appreciates that. The other side of it is really, if you look at geopolitics at the moment, it's getting increasingly complex. And I think that's actually making running global enterprises increasingly complex. Supply chains and value chains are getting increasingly complex. And then you have AI, which is really kind of touched by data rights and regulations and all sorts of different capabilities that different geographies don't want to have, others to have, and so on. So just navigating that is getting more and more complicated.
Yeah,
And
when
the
you reached
last,
out,
yeah,
you mentioned the messy operational world.
mm,
So
yeah, exactly. So that's actually that's what we do. That's basically what we focus on. And if you think about those two things, that kind of makes it a lot harder for a global enterprise, let's say, with a lot of people that sit outside of their organization chart, I would say. A lot of people that are partners or merchants or freelancers or brokers or whatever they may be, they are trying to kind of orchestrate effectively their distributed uh, workforce in a way that helps them grow. And that's exactly where the workflows are kind of the messiest. The kind of the multi-jurisdiction aspect of things make it even messier, much, much more complicated. The
is
fact that,
there
yeah,
something that you think people often misunderstand in particular?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there is less so about, I would say, misunderstanding, and more so that the focus goes to places that are easier to consider what AI is going to do to them, if that makes sense. Like with document processing and some professional services and so on, like sort of the optimizations that you can do in a, let's say, like a white collar job. That is, yeah, that's kind of easier to conceive of. That's easier to think what's going to happen to the next couple of years. But where it really touches, a significant number of people and parts of sort of rights and relationships that are not necessarily directly in, an organization hierarchy where you have hundreds of thousands of people kind of interacting with it, that gets a lot more complicated. And it's I think where there is still a lot of work to be done. I mean, I just give you an example. In financial services, we have everyone kind of talks about, okay, well, they're starting to use AI and the pilots, and some of them are scaling and so on. And that's true. A lot of that is happening. It's one of the industries that's actually kind of, in some ways, has a lot to gain from it, and is trying to do that. But at the same time, if you look at like an independent financial advisor or IRA or whatever kind of the equivalent is in different geographies, they are just like 1 in 20 of them, 1 in 10 of them maximum is meaningfully using AI. So it gets really kind of distorted in this like certain industries that, okay, just because there's some things happening in the head office to optimize something, sure, but there is actually a whole world of stuff that's a lot messier.
Yeah, it
And
seems like a very low number to me. But
yeah, the 1 in 10.
yes.
Yeah, which I mean, but there's good structural reasons for why it is still quite low. Part of it is because they're not part of the organization, right? Necessarily, they're not typically directly employed, etc., in an enterprise. So it's the kind of the change management programs and the type of principle you would have in place. It's not really there. It's a lot harder. And then if you think about the kind of, if again at the edges of an organization, your compliance and those aspects of things are a lot harder to monitor as well, or a lot harder to create, actually, to turn that into a positive enabling factor. So it's just messy and hard, right? It seems to be it's just not the obvious place, necessarily to start. And the reason we do it is because those problems are typically multi-jurisdiction, quite complicated. It requires kind of varied backgrounds and deep understanding of how those things actually work and so on. And we're building tools to solve those things specifically. So it fits our team, it fits our values, it fits where we think AI can actually be a positive force for good, in a growth focused way. But it's not necessarily the, let's say, the obvious place to go.
What do you think in conversations about AI? What feels genuinely important? Like, what is there like criteria, or is there specific subjects, or is it
Mm.
something else?
I think in conversations, typically, I mean, I guess there's a broad point to make, which is there's a lot of focus on efficiency and optimization and the sort of tactical stuff that AI can do, but sometimes the framework of, okay, this is a new capability, or this is a new system, there is also new opportunities attached to it, and there's also different ways of thinking about it that that is interesting, and that can be beneficial to the stakeholders. So I think there is a that first principle thinking, and also, let's say, the growth mindset attached to it is missed a little bit, and I understand it. I understand it in the sense that, yeah, it is it's quite a scary thing that's happening to all of us at the moment. But yeah, there are positives to it as well.
What does for an enterprise or an organization a healthy AI architecture look like?
Hmm. It is, I would say, AI architecture is really around the people that use it, how they use it, and the outcome that it creates. So a healthy one would have, let's say, it would have people kind of doing the judgment work, doing the taste work, doing the aspects of work that are in the organization's DNA, and what they think they're good at and what they want their edge to be. And it would have AI doing all the other stuff. That's at the core of it is it's just a system. Every department, every organization is a system, and there is a flow, and there is some things that you're trying to create and get out there. And there are bottlenecks to it. So as long as you design in a way that people are the most, let's say, most in line with what they're good at and what they want to be doing and what's most impactful for the business, and the AI is doing the other stuff, yeah, the better.
Do you think there are warning signs maybe that AI isn't the right tool? I'm not sure what you think about the 1 in 10 number, but maybe that's justified because of the kind of legal regulatory frameworks that obviously finance
Yeah,
kind of works within.
yeah, for sure. And that's exactly what I mean by there are new systems and new ways of working that you can consider and think about. Yeah, I don't want to receive financial advice from ChatGPT. That's for sure. But at the same time, I would like my advisor, for example, to be able to create compliant documents a lot quicker, to be able to answer my questions better, to be able to, have more information available to me in an understandable fashion. Like, those are things that could help my advisor, and make me a better customer, better client, and it would help the advisor be able to, um, yeah, be able to, let's say, build more meaningful relationships as well. So I agree for sure. There's structural reasons that sometimes we're not ready for, and sometimes we don't want AI to do certain aspects of the work. Um, we just gotta be we just gotta be cautious what it is that we want from that relationship, what it is we want from that engagement, and build the AI around that.
And what does accountability look like? Because the decisions, I guess, they're shaped like partly by the human that's using the AI and partly by like everything that went into it, like the data infrastructure.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think there's another really exciting area to actually think about, which is, okay, what does actually governance look like, in an AI enabled organization, right? Where does the responsibility lie when you have a system running that you don't understand, or to some degree you don't understand? I think it really comes down to, okay, do you do you understand the guardrails that are put in place? Do you understand the sort of the inputs that are going into the system? Do you understand what it can and cannot and should not be expected to do? It's really it's really about it's about that. It's about being able to kind of get comfortable designing a system where AI has a role, but it's not a role that you're not comfortable with it having. And for that, you need a lot of infrastructure to be able to do that.
And how do you design that infrastructure so maybe humans remain responsible without turning them into, kind of the exhausted reader of like the AI information?
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that. Actually, that is that's very much started to happen. And I think that's kind of this misconception of having human in the loop that's created that. Um, I think because if you sort of think about, okay, AI is generating, because you have AI, you can generate a lot more stuff. Okay, so but you want human in the loop, so you just put that human right in front of AI and say review everything that comes out. That obviously is just a really really bad system, right? You just move one bottleneck and create another one that doesn't make anyone happy. Not the reviewer, not no more increased output either. So I think you really need to kind of move that level of guardrails and guidance to what the AI is putting out a lot earlier in the journey, and then have systems that can view the whole and monitor the situation, monitor what is happening. So when thinking about systems that have that in place, it just comes down to, okay, what is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? If you want to have more marketing assets going out, is more a good enough metric? Or is it that you're trying to have more marketing assets that are going out that are, let's say, that people actually engage with, more marketing assets that are going out that create some value for the user? If that's the mindset that you have, then you build a system around removing bottlenecks for that flow, not just optimizing for effectively vanity metrics that result in, as you said, a lot of dissatisfied reviewers that have to validate stuff. So I think it is important to think about that human in the loop aspect of things, and where in the loop the human actually goes and why. Because sometimes it gets kind of used as a way to just justify scaling things without thinking through what system you've actually put in place.
What do you think that leaders should be measuring if they want to know whether, AI is creating trust versus kind of eroding that trust?
Hmm. That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I mean, I think it is there's not a, I wouldn't say there is necessarily a new metric, and trust is a hard thing to measure. But ultimately, trust is about doing something repeatedly and trusting it that it will give you the output that you want, and continuing to do that. So if you're getting adoption across the organization, wanting to use it more, wanting to actually engage with it, wanting to learn its limitations and understand its limitations, you're building trust.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to almost like individual psychology and preference, I guess.
Mm, yeah, for sure.
And I guess you've spoken about the boundary between like the system and the individual, like the people using the system. What do
Mm.
you think happens psychologically when AI is introduced to that workflow?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. So at least when I think about systems, people are very much part of that system, right? I think that's the first thing that does actually get missed more often than not. That the systems are designed without considering where where the human is, and that is, in my experience at least, when it comes down to um, having people engaging with the AI and being, being part of being a supporter and a champion of how that thing's rolling out and how it's helping, is that they need to actually be the first person, first people in the room from when you're actually thinking about it, from when you're designing it, when you're thinking about a system that um, you sort of hypothetically think actually helps their job. But I think that's kind of by far the most important thing, is that the people that are going to interact with it need to be in the room to start with, and the process needs to be designed around them. And more often than not, a lot of the AI initiatives sort of come pretty top down, and it's, sometimes those things can work, but it can really lead to people that are very unhappy and almost sabotaging the sort of the usage and whether the AI program is going to work or not. So yeah, make the decision with the people and start from that, design around that. That's actually not necessarily a new thing in AI, but it's just become much more important.
Yeah, you mentioned like individuals kind of sabotaging the AI process, I guess, without like revealing too many details. Would you be able to maybe elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've fortunately not had to deal with it directly, but I have definitely heard stories in our engagements of that actually happening when the project was designed the wrong way. But you can also empathize with it, right? Like a if I'm in a role and usage of AI or a system is imposed on me, and it's completely clear that this is just harvesting my data to replace me, and
Yeah,
there's at least a risk of that, then why would I? Why would I engage with it, right? In the same
right.
way that if you don't sort of like, if it's not clear that it's actually making your job different and better rather than just there to replace you, then of course it's very hard for people to want to interact with it.
What do you think is the difference between AI that feels like surveillance and AI that feels more like a support tool?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I was going to turn now back around at you and ask if you've kind of felt the difference between those tools.
Yeah, it's the line to walk, I guess, in terms of surveillance. Like, I think pretty much all of the internet is a tool for surveillance because
Mm,
everything is, privately owned by companies, but it's also a tool for support in that it's a shared community of like-minded individuals to a certain extent. I think we're
mm,
all very different, but at the end of the day, we all use this, and
mm.
it's to a certain extent up to us what we make of it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly the same, right? If there's a system that I benefit from it, then there is a reason for me to use it, and I kind of weigh those risks, right, as an individual. It's the same as you said with any other system. AI, obviously, there is a um, yeah, there is there's a lot that can happen very quickly in the AI world. But some of the first principles are the same. If I don't get value out of something, I'm not going to use it. So there's those lines, and in enterprise, it's the same story. If you're expecting people to just review the output from an AI system without having them actually benefited from something, why should they? right? That's that, unless that's specifically the job, which is a different story, then why do that?
And do you think AI will make organizations more human by like removing friction, or is it going to be less human because you're abstracting responsibility?
Uh, I think that's just as much as a sort of what I think about it is just as much of a choice of what I would like to believe than what I think realistically is going to happen. I would like to think so. I'm gonna for sure encourage people to do their bit because we still have choice and agency, and we can shape AI around making making organizations more human, as we said at the start. Um, but that's definitely not for sure. You're already seeing actually effects of the opposite happening as well. But yeah, I think you and I and others can for sure help still.
And Goodfolio, correct me if I'm wrong, works across retail intelligence, financial compliance, strategic intelligence, and kind of neurological diagnostics. What
Mm.
actually connects all of those fields?
Yeah, good question. I think it's a little bit harder these days to actually categorize solutions with industries and domains. What we do look at is the complexity of um, where an enterprise is effectively trying to facilitate their growth through a very, very distributed network of people and partners and entities effectively. So this is the sort of the recurring theme. So if you think about sort of financial marketing compliance and think about retail intelligence, both of those things happen very much just at the interface of where effectively enterprise clients are touching the real world and end users, B2C effectively, or B2B2C. Um, that's the type, broad categories of things. Those are what we do, but the type of problems that we're solving is around that, AI that looks from inside of the organization to outside and enables growth in that way. Those are the type of workflows that we're building for.
From everything you've learned, is there anything that sticks out? Because you've worked in, I guess, very different environments from like CPG to compliance and finance.
Mhm. Uh, yeah, I think there is lots of things, lots of things that stick out. I think the most important thing is that I have really, I've really noticed with across different industries, how the tone of the conversation, how the tone of let's say, the whole exercise of implementation, everything from design to scaling, it changes entirely, depending on whether you're focused on engaging people and growing and building around that, or it comes as a let's say cost saving exercise, right? That is the same across the board, and I think that's a really
Are there any
uh,
common patterns that you've noticed across all of the different industries?
yeah. Well, it's that I think is a kind of the tendency to want to optimize things. Tendency is another one that happens quite a bit. Is looking at AI as a data science problem, which is just far beyond that at this stage. So not really thinking about, okay, aren't really thinking about the system as a whole and the people again. It's just, okay, the accuracy of this thing seems to work, therefore this should work. And that's kind of the top-down type of thinking that doesn't really have the people that are going to use it in mind. That happens across the board, regardless of the industry, right? Yeah.
Was there like a moment in your career that kind of made you choose that mindset or that even that structure where you're operating less like a single product and more like a applied like AI studio?
Mm, that's yeah. I think it's really sort of an iteration of experiences, right? It's I think the longer, well, let's say the older that I've got, and the same with the team that I'm working with as well. But the older that we've got is that we want to we wanted to build something that's actually meaningful to us, and it represents what we are trying to do, because life is too short and AI is moving too fast. So what we're doing is both a combination of our sweet spot is what we want from life, and also what we think the world needs effectively. And that's not happened. That's not happened overnight. There's just been lots of successes and failures that have led to that.
And you said founders think in systems, that you think in systems. How has that shaped the way that you build teams?
Mm. Um, the well, team. That's that's another thing to think about. I think if you want to build a good system, you really need to deeply understand the components of it. And I think for me, the most important part as a founder has been not to have a system, at least in parts of our organization, where you are you're you're designing the role before the people, if that makes sense. So we are very, very flexible in how the team has grown and how the roles are structured around them and what they're good at, rather than the other way around. As positives and negatives, of course, but as a system, that's what's allowed us to build something that is a combination of our collective capabilities, rather than just high vision or whatever it may be.
Do you think there's a type of person that's kind of best suited to build enterprise AI specifically, or is it kind of translators between different domains? Is it like product thinkers, domain experts, or is it more of a translator?
That's a really, really good question. I think there is. I mean, judgment and sort of pattern matching, which creates that judgment. That's what's important. And that can only come from two things, and ideally from both of them at the same time. That can either come from deep domain expertise in a specific type of let's say, I don't want to say industry, but a specific type of workflow or a specific type of problem. So we have people in the team that have spent, I don't know, 30 years thinking about logistics, or 20 years thinking about compliance and so on. Or you need people that have seen different shapes of the problem in different industries. And ideally, both those people are sitting in the same room trying to solve the problem. That's where the real magic happens. But it does get a little bit, let's say, easier actually at the moment, to take it back to AI, to think about at least what's possible a little bit, if you're curious, and if you have different types of people in the room, because it is quicker to learn. right? That is the one benefit. It is the quicker to get access to information. So yeah, being able to work through problems and understand what is possible is was more fun than it used to be.
And how do you keep technical depth and commercial reality in conversation without one kind of like swallowing the other one?
Um, that's actually one of the kind of the judgment calls that I don't think is gonna get automated away anytime soon. Because yeah, I think really, really it's just a constant balancing act, right? We keep an extremely close eye on pipeline, what's coming over the next days and weeks, and we keep a very sort of detailed log of everything that is happening and is going to happen. Now, one thing that is interesting that started to happen is we have we have kind of like got to the stage where the AI is actually doing preempting some of the work of the technical debt becoming a problem, which is really good. That's the kind of different ways of thinking about how to use AI that wasn't really there before. It's fun, yeah. So it's trying to use AI to our advantage is part of the answer. But ultimately, it becomes a judgment. It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah. And I guess I have a bit of a more formulaic question, but we often speak about AI as if it's intelligence that is the main question. And maybe the deeper question that underlies it is coordination, like how
Hmm.
humans, machines, institutions, and their incentives align. How does that feel? Does that feel right to you? Do you think?
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think that's pretty spot on. And I think this is kind of my framing of the system is exactly the same as well. So like you know um I studied maths, right? So there's a certain degree of appreciation that I have for the AI aspect of things or the scientific aspect of things. But that's not what the interesting or important part is. It's everything else that goes in the system that creates that. And that is, as you said, why are people using it? Why is it there in the first place? What are the sort of the incentives attached to actually using it, or for that to happen? What's the data that goes in? What's the outcome that comes out? Those are much more interesting problems to think about.
What do you think AI reveals about the hidden architecture of a business?
I laugh because there isn't a week that goes by that I'm not in an engagement or in a prospect engagement or even ourselves that AI doesn't reveal something that we did not, we would not have known or the client wouldn't have known. And that is anything from, okay, we try to apply AI here. Now we realize that actually that check or process that we thought we have in place or that policy that we thought we have in place, we just never had it. We just thought it's happening and it's not happening. Or that we try to implement AI and you just realize like just all the data gaps become really quickly quickly visible. So okay, we want to automate proposal generation. So great, okay, well, how's the CRM? Nothing in the CRM makes sense, right? Like there is always kind of like everything that kind of comes out of attempting to put AI into the system and then realizing that actually what you thought is happening and what your understanding of the processes is very different to what is actually happening in the reality. So we're trying to increasingly shift away from kind of assuming things about systems and things like that, and what's happening in an organization. Just trying to really understand what is actually happening before before putting an AI in production.
And do you think there's a specific kind of institutional change that AI forces companies to confront? Or
Yeah, that's a yeah, I think um yeah, I think it really does actually let's say put focus on values and on having sort of alignment across the organization of what is important and what is not, and what the organization stands for. Um, because if you're saying that, it's a lot easier now or quicker now to grow certain capabilities than it was before, then all that remains is what is important to you as an organization. What capabilities do you want to grow, and where do kind of people fit into that? So to put it really, really simplistically, there's what are you on the good side of, and what are you on the bad side of? It becomes much, much more important really, really quickly, and really visible in the small decisions that everyone's making day to day as well.
what do you think more mature public conversation about AI will sound like?
Um, that is one that is kind of more measured, I would say. One is that is conscious of the fact that their impact that it's going to have is big, but also acknowledges the fact that we still have a lot of choice and agency, and there is a lot of hope in what it enables us to do as well. So I think let's say more balanced dialogue of what can be done in a positive way. That's good for growth, and that's good for value that's generated for us. Then that's a nice conversation to have, I think.
And where do you think kind of the next wave of disappointment from AI will come from?
Oh, yeah, interesting. It's actually a bit of a possibly non-conventional answer, but I do think there is a lot of hidden costs in what people, whether that's technical debt or token costs or security costs or whatever it may be. I think there's a there's a lot of hope in sort of vibe coding and all of this stuff that has allowed people to get to a certain degree, but there is a kind of like a lot hidden in there that's not come out, and I think it's gonna become a bit of a backlash soon as well.
On the flip side, what do you think the real value, what the next wave is of real value will come from? And like, where do you think it will come from? And
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really excited about to give a metaphor. I'm really excited about all the new sort of art forms that have not been explored yet. It's not really. I'm quite curious by nature, so I'm interested to see what people explore in terms of what wasn't possible before, but it is possible now, and it does generate value, and it does kind of make us happier human beings overall. That's the that's the part I'm excited about. I think actually, yeah, art can be one of those places, but it's a lot of complications with that one as well.
yeah, and if AI is a mirror that's held up to the organization, what do you think it reveals first? For example, like maybe does it expose weak organizations more than it strengthens the strong ones, or
Hmm.
does it reveal
Yeah,
something else entirely?
well, I think it does reveal your values really quickly. I think what you've cared about over the years. it becomes really, really transparent, because ultimately what you are doing is trying to enhance something that you've been doing, or create new ways of doing that. And to be able to do that, it really exposes your DNA, or at least you would hope that it needs to expose your DNA. Otherwise, you're just building on top of something you don't understand. Yeah.
Is there what should companies preserve as they automate?
Um, Judgment, taste. Um, I would say those are the sort of the key things. Intuition. These are not, and ultimately, you know, what they think they're good at versus others. If you're really, really good at brand positioning, make sure you invest in that. Make sure you make that better and get all the tools possible to
What
do a better job of that.
what has AI or building AI, I suppose, taught you about human judgment?
Hmm. Um, Good question. Is that we can get both excited and scared very, very quickly. I guess I didn't see I didn't see that. I was too young for the dot-com bubble. But there is definitely both an incredible amount of hubris without understanding actually what's in the system, but also just lack of engaging with something that can be that can be uh, instrumental and is going to change things. Just staying in denial for far too long is not helpful either.
And I think you boiled it down really to the individual, and it really comes down to, your own perception and intuition, like your own willingness to grow. How, if I wanted to use AI more responsibly, how would you recommend that I navigate that landscape?
Hmm. Um, I think it's really, well, can we define responsibly actually? How do you use AI at the
Responsibly
moment?
means, I guess, keeping ownership of the accountability on one hand, and also on the other hand, being able to remain in an ethical frame that benefits
Hmm.
society as well as its
Yeah,
individuals.
yeah, perfect. Okay, well, then I think actually is no different to how you've, let's say, how have we viewed life already, right? If you're engaging with something to make life better, if you engage in something to learn, if you engage in with something uh, that you still do it in a way that has your principles embedded into it, then that's the great starting point, right? And if you keep that in mind, then you know the best learners are children, right? Being curious and experimenting in a safe fashion. That's the best way to kind of align that with what you want the world to shape up to be.
And what question do you wish more CEOs were asking before they deploy AI?
Uh, yeah, what are people in the organization actually worried about and think are the bottlenecks before deciding? I guess that's one thing. I think um, really, I think there's understanding the limitations and capabilities by experimenting yourself is quite important. It's very, very difficult at the moment, given the speed of things happening, to have a good judgment of where things are going and how quickly, unless you're trying to kind of engage with it directly as well. I think that's quite important. There's an enterprise CEO that yeah, we're working with their team, and I mean, he vibe codes, right? Not because he actually wants to implement or scale any of that in the organization, but because he wants to kind of get a feel for um, what is the kind of, what are the things that it's good at and what are the things that it's not, how to think about it and how to shape the strategy. So yeah, I think listening to people and engaging with the tools to learn, those are important.
Thank you so much for that, Omid.